Pete,
Yeah.
we have a show to do. You're over
Mm,
there buried in your iPad. What are you doing?
yeah. Oh, did you know there were 2 episodes of Bad Batch this week? I had no idea. So I'm trying to get them in because I know we're going to talk about Bad Batch tonight.
Well, that's true. Also need you to. Are you aware that Bad Batch season 3 has been going for like a month now at this
Oh
point, and
yeah,
we haven't talked about it yet.
we haven't.
But you're over here cramming for it.
I guess you're right. I never thought about that. Interesting.
It is interesting, and that doesn't mean we don't like it.
No, I'm
We're
digging
enjoying
it.
it. It's fun.
I'm enjoying it so much I didn't even realize we're not talking about it. But like last week was like basically Jurassic Park meets Dune, which I thought was
It,
kind of cool. But
it was very cool, and I mean, yesterday, Rex and Gregor and Wolf, like it was like Rebels started all over again, only earlier.
right. So why don't we talk about Bad Batch?
There's a very good and specific reason for it. And that
Okay.
reason is this is ATG Live.
Well, welcome to the all-new ATG Live, your home of on Thursday nights. Not of Thursday, maybe of Thursday nights. I don't know. English is like a second language to me.
Yes, have some.
Yeah, but this is where we talk about Star Wars. We have conversation. We have opinions. I'm Pete Fletzer, and I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined by my good friend Nick Milky. Nick, we joked about not covering Bad Batch, so let's give it a little bit of its due. How are you feeling about Bad Batch so far?
I mean, obviously, I love it. I'm excited that it's back. It's a show that I have certainly grown to love since the first 4 episodes of Clone Wars season 7.
Yeah.
And I said this to you probably in a text message. I was a little cranky the first, we got 3 the first week, and I went, okay. Like in my old age, I get more and more to that. Like, let's get to the point. Let's get to the action. Let's get to, what's happening mode, quote unquote filler episodes, which there really aren't any. We know,
Not really,
but
no.
I wanted it to be slow because I think in my mind it felt slow, but it's great. And this week was no exception. We got 2 episodes yesterday and they were a lot of fun. And they are continuing to do the thing I'm loving, certainly with this era of Star Wars, certainly in the animation, is it's building the backstories for the Empire and for the sequel trilogy, even at this point.
Yep, for sure. For sure. And the other reason, honestly, that we don't get too much into Bad Batch is first of all, there's a lot of great shows out there that are doing it. You should go check those guys out and then come back and check us out. But most importantly, there is so much Star Wars news lately. Like apparently, Nick, there is some news on the Skeleton Crew drop date that came out this week.
Is it news about that? I'm excited about that. There's also news from Jake Lloyd's mother. She spoke out in the great story from our friend Clayton Sandell.
Yeah, it seems that Rogue Squadron, believe it or not, seems to be back on the table.
And Pete, buckle your seatbelt, grip the edge of your table, whatever it is you need to do, bite down on a strap of leather. Gina Carano can't get a job.
What?
And I know you have some thoughts about that. I know we're going to get into that. But there's news. There's a lot of Star Wars news this week. There are several stories we're not even really getting to that we kind of kept kicking them down the line as something else popped up. So
well,
the week in Star Wars, excited to talk about it.
Yeah, well, and the good news is we have probably the busiest man in YouTube, Mr. John Rocha, the Outlaw, joining us tonight. He is sort of the expert, one of my favorite places to go for entertainment news. So we're gonna talk to him about all this news and more when we get to him a little bit after the news.
We are, and we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping at the top of the show because we would not be live streamers / YouTubers if we didn't say, hey, like, subscribe, share, follow, rate, review.
All those things
in the first try. That's pretty good.
That's good.
Do that. Check us out. If you're here already, you're watching, we appreciate that. We are here every Thursday. Also, we are now at, and I wrote it down, so let me look. We're at 946 subscribers on YouTube.
All right, we're getting there.
Push towards 1,000. We're up 1 from last week. So whoever you are, thank you. We appreciate you. Continuing to do that. So share us out. Share us with your friends. We love that y'all are here hanging out with us. I know we've got a bunch of friends in the chat already. But share us out. Share us out right now. Run to your favorite social media platform, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are. drop the YouTube link and say, hey, come hang out with us and watch the show. It's happening right now.
Right. And speaking of social media, you can follow us on Twitter at ATGcast and everywhere else, every other social media platform, things that don't even exist yet, we're already a part of. That's not true.
We're making this up as we go.
We are barely part of the ones that exist. We are at the SSW Network, and you can also head on over to our website, because when we do add another social, or if you're looking for a social that we're on, go to the sswnetwork.com. You can find all the links to all of our socials. Plus, you can find a link to our merch store. We still have a lot of really cool merch. The shill merch is still on fire, and if you use the code SHILL15, you're going to get 15% off that entire order that you place. So you can do that. Do that on one of the breaks. Go buy something.
And speaking of that website, it's one of my favorite things to say. It is your one-stop shop for all things SSW Network, ATGLive, Podcast of the Wheels, etc., etc. Included in that list is our Patreon program. We would love for you to join us on Patreon. There's a link you can click, join SSWN. For as little as $3 a month, you can jump in when we record interviews for Around the Galaxy. Yeah. Most recently, we recorded with our friend Clinton from ESPN. Such a fun time. In fact, that podcast turned into 2 separate editions of the podcast. Lots of fun, lots of good Star Wars stuff there. You could watch that while we record it live, get it early ahead of everyone else. We're going to send you swag. We're going to invite you every now and then to hang out and meet some of our guests. Lots of fun stuff. So check that out. Join us. We'd love to have your support. We would be honored to have your support.
We would be honored if you would join us. Finally, speaking of bad voiceovers, we do have a voicemail line. Did you know that? Of course you know that, because we talk about it every week, and the number's like right there along the bottom. It's 504-321-1501, 504-321-1501. Leave us a voicemail, and whenever the mood strikes, whether you're watching Bad Batch, whether you're driving in your car and you think of some crazy Star Wars thing, whether you're Matt from Enid and you're talking to strangers on the street about Star Wars, do so. Send us that message, 504-321-1501. You just want to say hi. That would be cool. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a call. I'll say it one more time because I'm a radio DJ, 504-321-1501.
Well, and that brings up a really important question, Pete. Is it O or is it 0? And is this a regional difference? Because I'm inclined to say 0, where you tend to be an O guy.
I'm an O guy. I think maybe it's a Northeast thing. We don't have time for 2 syllables, so we just go. We'll give you the O and 0.
You spent all your time watching Office Space, so you're giving us your O face.
It's O. So true.
Exactly. Well, we don't want to spend too much time getting into the semantics of O's and zeros. We've got a great show to get to. We're going to get to the news right after this break. But before we do, just a reminder, we are going to have the Outlaw himself, John Rocha, is going to be joining us. So we're going to hit a quick break. We're going to come back with the news, and we're going to continue with more ATG Live.
Well, welcome back to ATG Live, your Thursday night home for all things Star Wars, conversation, guests, your comments, your voicemails. If you're here tonight for the first time because you saw the name John the Outlaw Rocha joining us, please hang on to your butts, because he's going to be here after we get to the news, and we're probably going to talk news with him, because who better to talk about it with than Mr. Rocha. And if you are here and you're having a good time, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to tell a friend, tell a family member. You have... what is it? It's St. Patrick's Day this weekend. So when you're out drinking with your buddies, say, there was this really cool Star Wars show that I found, and it's called ATG Live. It's on Thursday nights. We do our drinking on Friday. Thursdays, we can prepare, watch a little Star Wars conversation and the news. So I'm going to shut up and take us to the news. Well, our first story is actor Dane DeLiegro was stopped on the red carpet recently while promoting his new Blumhouse horror film called Imaginary, and somebody asked him about his next project, which happens to be an unidentified role in the upcoming Disney Plus series Skeleton Crew. The show, which is starring Jude Law, has been shrouded in secrecy, with not so much as a release date being confirmed. DeLiegro was asked when we may see him, and he made it crystal clear that he was just guessing, but he said, quote, "I'm hoping by fall. I know Lucasfilm likes to release things around November-ish." He then added, "I know Lucasfilm is due for something pretty cool, and I think Skeleton Crew may be that thing." DeLiegro, a former professional basketball player in Italy, said that the role is, quote, "not anything long or substantial, but it's a pretty cool sequence." Well, Nick, as you know, I'm going to call it 2 for 2 because I missed by a week on Bad Batch, but
We're
I'm
giving you
fine with
that one.
I'll
Sure.
take that one. That's close.
Yeah.
And I said June 5th for Acolyte, which looks like it may be the case. And I said December 18th for Skeleton Crew. I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking to my guns on that one. But I will say, I the only thing that made me nervous about that quote, and I hate to be that guy, but Dakota Johnson recently and Madam Web, right? She has been getting some slack from Sony, as she probably should, for kind of downplaying Madam Web and kind of taking the jokey side of things. And when he said Lucasfilm is due for something pretty cool, I hope he's not implying that the rest of Star Wars hasn't been. And again, it's all up to personal opinion, and that's fine if that's his opinion. If he hasn't loved it, that's great. But I just hope that's taken out of context. I want Skeleton Crew. I want Acolyte. I want Jedi, Tales of the Jedi, which is coming this year. I want them to all be met with positivity, even if you don't like them. And again, you don't have to love them, and you don't have to fake it, but you can certainly at least be positive about it. What are your thoughts on it and that date? What do you think about that timing?
Well, I mean, I haven't really predicted dates, but you've been closer than any dates I might have predicted. All you've missed on so far was the Acolyte trailer that we didn't get at the beginning of this week that you were very certain of. Yes. There's a couple of things at play here. I think, first of all, what is cool, what is pretty cool, what, the sliding scale,
right.
This guy, how many press people are you managing publicity wise while he's working on another project? That may point to how major or minor he really is in the story. As he said to himself, it's not much. Also, the first thing that popped in my mind, the last European basketball player that we got involved in Star Wars is our friend Jonas, and he became a very important Wookiee. So maybe Dane is going to be a Wookiee. I don't know how tall he is. What I do know is I'm excited for Skeleton Crew. It's, the pitch of an Amblin style kids in space, Goonies, Gremlins, that kind of adventure. Like, let's go. I think the pirates are going to play into it from Mando season 3.
Yep.
It's a lot to look forward to. And I do think it's kind of speculative and subjective to go, they're due for something cool. Because guess what? Andor, pretty freaking cool. Mando season 3, pretty freaking cool. Bad Batch, kicking ass. Kenobi, pretty freaking like.
Well, and he's probably not a huge Star Wars fan either necessarily, right? So he's probably like, yeah, they're due for something cool. And he might not, honestly, let's face it, a lot of these guys don't even know what's going on with the rest of the Lucas. We know more about it because we're nerds and this is what we do. He may not have seen any of that stuff coming out. Yeah. The cool thing to keep in mind about this Dane DeLiegro guy is he was the Predator in Prey. So he's a monster guy. He's a tall guy, dude. I would love to see a Wookiee make their
let's get a signature Wookiee that has some time to guide these kids or be with them.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that totally works. Well, coming up, Jake Lloyd's mother speaks out. Award-winning journalist, author, and friend of the show, Clayton Sandell of Scripps News, published a story a couple days ago as an update on the actor who played young Anakin Skywalker in The Phantom Menace, Jake Lloyd. Cast as the future Darth Vader at just 8 years old, Jake was the target of criticism by fans and media who lashed out against Episode 1, 25 years ago, which again, Pete, 25 years ago, Phantom Menace, just like that. In the years since, Jake disappeared from the public eye. He had several run-ins with the law as a result of, at the time, undiagnosed paranoid schizophrenia. His mother explained in the interview that he did not leave acting because of the response to The Phantom Menace, which is great to hear.
Yep.
but due to the mental illness issues that he was experiencing. She assured Clayton that he still loves Star Wars and cited specifically that he's a big fan of Ahsoka. Pete, we love Clayton. He's going to be on with us here coming up in just the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
I'm so thankful to him for telling this story. We have all speculated over the years what might have happened to Jake. We know things happened with Ahmed Best. So many of us are excited to get an update on him. We've seen a lot of comments along the lines of, can't wait to see him at a con. Can't wait to see him at Celebration one day. Yep. And I know that those comments are well-meaning. They come from a very positive place. We saw, Hayden at Celebration in Europe, last year, as they say, receiving his flowers, getting the opportunity to be brought back into the circle.
Yep.
Those are genuine, well-meaning things. But I think that there's also the possibility that some of that doesn't come from a full understanding really of what mental health is, which is not just Star Wars specific. That is a nationwide, worldwide, stigma that we deal with.
Yep.
The reality is it doesn't work that way. I've lived my entire life with closely connections to people who have struggled with a variety of mental health disorders, anxiety, bipolar, depression. And the pressure of a situation like that might likely serve to set him back. And we don't want that for him. I don't know, what this ultimately plays out to look like. In the article, she said he's doing better than he has in a while. I want to see that continue. I would love nothing more than one day for him to have the opportunity to receive that love.
Yeah.
But I don't know at this point what it looks like. And it is still kind of a touchy thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you bring up a fantastic point. And look, I was very relieved to read that that he was shielded from a lot of the horrible things that were said about him and about episode 1. I mean, how does an 8 to 10-year-old handle that? That's younger than my son. Can you imagine that kind of trying, hey, you just did something and the entire world hates it. That's right. Awful. But I think you're right. And I think, look, we all want to see an Ahmed Best, a Hayden Christensen situation happen. But honestly, I don't think it will. And I think it would do more harm than good. I think it would put him at risk. And I'm just happy to see that he's getting the help he needs and that
that's it,
that he's moving forward. And I think that's all we should ask. And I don't think, I think it's important that people who mean that in the best possible way fully understand why it's not going to happen. It's not because he doesn't want to. And frankly, he probably, part of him would love to do it, but it's probably just not the best thing for him.
Well, and again, speaking from personal experience, the build up to get to that moment, the things that culminate, the culmination of that moment, like there is so much, if you know anyone who has an anxiety disorder, leaving the house is a big deal. Preparing for something that a month ago you went, I'd love to do that. And the day before, it's like, I can't believe this is like all the things that have to do, and it deprives you of your energy and saps you. And then you have to recover for, a month. It is a big thing. It is a significant thing. Not to say that he can't get to a place where he can do that. Many people have and deal with and recover, but it's just very involved. And so I hope that as a fandom, we will set our expectations at a reasonable level to go, we're so excited you're doing better. We love you. And we want you to, we want nothing but the best from you. And if that's all that it is, then that's awesome.
That's great. And again, really great news that he's in a good spot right now. So that's all we can ask for sure. All right. Well, our next story is Gina Carano says she can't find a gig. Former Mandalorian actor Gina Carano was recently interviewed by a Canadian conservative online news magazine called The Post Millennial. Never heard of it until the other day. The article reiterated many of the details from the lawsuit over her alleged firing from Disney, but she added that the incident has, quote, stuck to her, making it difficult for her to attract work or even find an agent. The former mixed martial arts fighter said, quote, it's like I've been in this desert where I belong nowhere. I had my moment with the Daily Wire, but I don't work with them. I'm not employed by them. And so I feel like I'm sitting here in the desert, just trying to stay positive and trying to rebuild, getting doors closed on me. She was dropped by her representation at UTA after her contract with Disney was not renewed, and recently was signed with a company called Straight Wire Entertainment. All right. First of all, the reason she's not getting work, I'm not even going to talk about what she tweeted, what everything specifically about what her issue was. First point, she's not a great actor. I hate to tell you, right? I mean, I remember going way back to when I was doing streaming Star Wars with David Amilati when The Mandalorian first hit. My first comment was she acted like a poor 1970s television actress. So that's number one. But it's all about being somebody people want to work with. She has made things difficult. She ignored what her boss asked her to do.
Right.
Nick, you or I, if our boss found our social media and said, listen, you got to cool it, that you do that, right? That's what you do. It's not about freedom of speech. That's just bullshit. She's made things difficult for her company. Disney does not want to make anything difficult. She's a PR nightmare, period. Plain and simple. She's not going to be hired. She's a PR nightmare because this story is going to follow her. It's not going to be about whatever project she's a part of. This story is going to follow her, and nobody wants that. She's aligning with a fringe portion of the population that's playing this persecuted white man and woman bullshit. That has to stop. Nobody is buying that card right now. They decided not to renew her contract, and they did so because of the fact that she's difficult to work with. Plain and simple. She's a lightning rod for controversy. She's not going to find work in anything other than some Ben Shapiro straight to video movie. So that's my take. I can calm down a little bit.
I wish you had opinions on this. That would give us more to talk about. A couple things at play here. First of all, and we've seen this many, many times with many, many celebrities and stars and actors, whoever, they do have freedom of speech. What they don't have is freedom from consequences of that speech. That's the way life works. You say something, you threaten the president, the Secret Service will investigate you. You're allowed to say it, but you're going to get your ass snuffed out because that's how it works. Not a great actress. Again, I agree with you. Stilted cardboard. One of my two favorite parts of this are, one, who is her champion in her corner? Elon Musk. How's that going to work out for you?
Right.
But also, I said this weeks ago when the story kind of came up, when the lawsuit came up. What better way to make the workplace awkward than to sue your way back into a job?
Right. Like, she's literally asking.
Hey, we've let you go. We don't want you here anymore. This isn't working. And then it's like when your sister, your parents make you and your sibling wear the same shirt because you can't stop fighting. So we're going to put you in the same shirt and you're going to learn how to figure it out.
I mean, the lawsuit literally asks for $70,000, which is less than a Donald Trump payoff, and it is asking to have her reinstated on the show.
Right?
Come on, what do you? That's not going to work out for anybody.
Fast forward to the end. This is like George Costanza refusing to leave after he's fired. Like, how great is that work environment going to be? If you're like, oh yeah, and she's here because, the lawsuit said she has to be here.
Right. So hey, Gina, they took your stapler. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's time to move on.
Back. Let's try it again.
All right.
A lot of office space tonight.
We got one more story before we take a break and come back with John Rocha. So why don't we hit that next one?
We do. Rogue Squadron appears to possibly be back on track. While making appearance on the podcast Talking Pictures, host Ben Mankiewicz asked Patty Jenkins, among other things, about her allegedly canceled Star Wars project, Rogue Squadron. To which she replied, quote, "When I left Star Wars to do Wonder Woman 3, we talked about, maybe I'll come back to Star Wars after Wonder Woman 3. So we did a deal for that to happen. But then when Wonder Woman 3 went away, Lucasfilm and I were like, oh, we've got to finish this deal. We finished the deal right as the strike was beginning. So now I owe a draft of Star Wars. We will have to see what happens there." She went on to say they have other directors who have been working, but I'm now back working on doing Rogue Squadron, end quote. As of this moment, there has been no official confirmation from Lucasfilm that this project is still moving forward. Pete, I have feelings about this. I do hope that this one sticks. Now, whether it's Patty Jenkins or not, I know there's some potentially problematic social things with Patty Jenkins. It does not distinguish the fact that she has had a pretty fascinating career. She started doing music videos with Madonna and Michael Jackson. She also did the Academy Award-winning movie Monster with Charlize Theron. But then from Monster to 14 years later, it was episodes of Arrested Development. It was TV. It was some other things. And then Wonder Woman came along. She is a passionate creator. She seems to have a specific vision for this film. She talks about her father, who was a pilot. I think there's the opportunity to do some things that I'm excited about, like showcase our friend Paul Sun-Young Lee. Let's give Carson Teva spotlight in a movie. Let's get this squadron going, whatever they're doing, patrolling. To me, it feels like the opportunity to do another kind of genre specific outside of the box Star Wars thing, kind of like Rogue One was. It was a war movie. It was a spy movie. Rogue Squadron could be another version of, you and I grew up watching the World War II movies that our dads watched, the John Wayne movies, a very dogfight heavy something. Like, let's get into something like that. Like, I think that could be fun. What do you think?
I love the concept. I love the concept from day one when Kathleen Kennedy announced it and they showed that cool video at the Investor Day. But I have two issues with Patty Jenkins. One is Wonder Woman 1984 was a very difficult movie to watch. I'm not here to critique movies, and I know some people love it, and that's awesome. And, all the best to you on that. That's great. I did not enjoy that movie, and it makes me nervous as to how she puts together a story. More importantly, though, I have heard the stories of how she works and what, the control that she needs. And that's fine. That's a style, right? That's like, you would never put Stanley Kubrick in a Star Wars situation. I mean, other than the fact that he's no longer alive, but if he was alive, you wouldn't put him there and then expect to be able to have Dave Filoni say, hey, listen, I think we should do something a little bit different with that scene, because that's not going to work. So I worry that she's not the right person for it. I also worry that in her quote, she says something about, you got a lot of other directors right now that they're committed to, and we'll see how that goes. It seems a little me firsty. And we've seen what happens. We've seen what happens with, look, Kathleen Kennedy is a very, I don't want to say controlling, but she knows what she wants, and she knows who she wants to give freedom to.
Well,
and that could be a challenge.
You're right. And we even hear that referenced in the Gina story. I read the Variety article, and she talked about going to sit with Kathleen Kennedy before she was hired to do Mandalorian. And that very specific, she knows what she wants. She's a strong woman. She's whatever. But we've also seen, the Taika Waititi movie is floating in the ether. The Ryan, movie or trilogy is floating. Benioff and Weiss. Like, these things have come and gone away. And so I think the, maybe a little bit overlooked part of that statement is exactly what you said. There are other directors out there. There are other things. When you're as a company as big as Disney you can roll the dice and say, hey, let's try, 3, 4, 5 things, see which ones are going to stick and which ones we're ultimately going to develop and move forward with.
Yeah.
So it's certainly very early on.
Yeah. And we'll get into this with John, but you're right. I mean, I think you're 100% right, but we're also in a spot where Iger is also like, not having the flexibility he once did. So, but we had some great news stories tonight. Thank you all for hanging out with us. If this is your first time with us, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit the reminder so you can join us next week. But we're going to take a real short break. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by the busiest man on YouTube, the Outlaw, John Rocha. Well, we are back with ATGLive, your Thursday night home for all things Star Wars. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. If this is your first time with us, hit the subscribe button. Make sure to join us whenever you can. You can also check this out on the replay. We play the interviews. We take the interview sections, our little Force Connect section here, and we put it into the podcast stream. And this week, it's going to be Mr. John Rocha, so let's bring him in.
That's incredible. I want to hire whoever does your videos right now on the air. Whatever your rate is, let's make it happen. You quote your rate, I'll give it to you. That's fantastic. Oh,
well, I'd love to hear it. John, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Just relaxing after the hot mic. 2 hours of blood pressure going back and forth with Jeff Snyder there. A lot of very fun show that I do on Thursdays. So I'm excited to be back on here to talk some Star Wars with you all. Who knew we were going to have so much stuff breaking on a Thursday?
So much stuff on a Thursday.
I was listening to you guys going back and forth. So a lot of great points you both were making. So thanks for having me on.
Well, absolutely. We're glad to have you. And I haven't had a chance to be on screen with you yet. I know you've been on with Pete before, so it's great to meet you. Just in case, and before we get into all the the gritty, sweaty details, just in case, we've got a bunch of friends hanging out tonight. Just in case there's somebody here that doesn't know the Outlaw, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Oh, yeah. I've been in this space for about, 9 years now, going into 2024. Totally fell into it ass backwards thanks to Christian Harloff, who walked me into a Star Wars show. And he said, hey, man, would you want to co-host this with me and Tiffany Smith? And I was like, I'm just a regular dude. He's like, no, but I like your points of views. Come on in. Took to it like a duck to water. Christian ended up leaving the show. It was far, far away. And then Tiffany and I hosted for a while. She taught me the ropes. And then from that point, I started pitching shows, creating shows, eventually and hosting a bunch of after shows, eventually landing at Collider, doing about 3 years there, or 2 years, I guess, 2.5 years there full time, really learning the ropes from a lot of incredible people there. And then eventually we split in 2020 and I started building my own channel. And now over the last 4 years, I've been working on my own channel. I host a lot of podcasts. I host a lot of shows on the channel, things like The Jedi Way, which is our Star Wars show with Kevin Smets and Laura Kelly, but the Hot Mic, as I mentioned, with Jeff Snyder, the Geek Buddies that I do with my two buds, Michael Vogel and Shannon McClung, we're both animation people, writers, executives, and what have you. And then my own stuff that I do on the channel as well, whenever I get a bug up my ass about something. But one of the biggest shows that I do is The Cinephiles, which is a podcast that I host about movies. Me and my co-host, Steve Morris, who is a director and writer-director in L.A., we talk about great movies every week. We're in the middle of our season of Scorsese as we're ripping through Raging Bull. We just dropped all 3 parts of Raging Bull, going scene by scene through the movie. That's kind of how our podcast is. So really proud of all the luck I've been able to do and all the work I've been able to do, rather, and being lucky enough to be able to do it with so many great people. So yeah,
there's so many great programs. And
just hearing that list of all the things makes me extra thankful that you even had 20 minutes to hang out with us tonight, because
I love you guys.
I don't know how you're able to hold still.
Yeah, so my girlfriend says the same thing. Yeah.
Well, and you're a sports guy too, so that's
massive.
good to know. We just had a Around the Galaxy episode with Clinton Yates from ESPN, and
nice.
We've had Arda Ocal. He's a good friend of the show as well. So hey, we're all of the same mind. So we had a bunch of questions that we sent you earlier in the week to prepare to have a nice conversation, and then, as you said, we got a couple of interesting things going on. I'm going to start. I want to throw at you.
Yeah, I
want to get your perspective on what's really happening with this Patty Jenkins Rogue Squadron situation, based on your insight.
I can be a bit of a hard ass on these things, and be a little more jaded than I used to be when I was first getting in the business. So you work long enough and you live in that town long enough, you start to understand how the creative's mind thinks, and it's very much about brand saving. It's very much about PR. It's very much about getting yourself in the mouths of people and in conversation. And I think Patty knew exactly what she was doing on this particular podcast. She probably did not get Lucasfilm's approval to say this stuff and just went on there. And as I don't know if you guys know wrestling terms, but she basically went into business for herself on that podcast and very much pitched this idea, because we know that it's Matthew Robinson who is credited as a screenwriter on Rogue Squadron, and her saying, well, we got another draft to do, and then we need to feel comfortable with this before we go forward. She takes ownership of the project, even though it's very much Lucasfilms. And so I think it was a little bit of brand saving by her, a little bit of hey, I'm still in this thing. How are you guys excited to have me back? Let's see how you react. And maybe putting the pressure on Lucasfilm and Disney to bring her back into the project. But I think it's kind of blown up in her face, seeing some of the reactions online and on social media of this idea of her coming back to do Rogue Squadron. And there's no guarantee she's going to direct it. I think a lot of people would have an issue with that. And I think you guys were hitting some really good points about it when you were talking about it earlier.
So what you're basically saying is us talking about it and everybody else talking about it is exactly what you wanted, but there's not a lot of people saying, gimme, gimme, gimme.
Yes. Yeah. And I think,
and I love the point you made about if she said what she said, she didn't have Lucasfilm's blessing to do that. It's a very kind of amorphous thing for her to say. Yeah. And it reminds me of my favorite TV show of all time is The West Wing. And there's an episode in the first season when they go out to the Hollywood movie director's house to do a fundraiser for the president. And people keep coming up to all the president's staff members saying, hey, I can get you a job in development. And they're all going, development? What the hell is that? And they're like, I don't know, but you can develop things. You could be in development on this project. Yeah. Like you could think about it. You could write about it. You could draw pictures of it. We don't know. It's a very wide view for whatever her involvement may or may not be.
Yeah, because think about it. What do you know Disney to be like, you know what, guys, just talk about our projects willy-nilly. We're not really
we give these code names for a reason.
Right. We're not hard asses about anything. Go ahead, talk about it. So no, that would not be the way to go.
There's no easier company to work with than Disney.
Yeah,
this is a fact. This is a fact. Well, and speaking of working with Disney, I hesitate to ask, but I want to kind of get your opinion because I've seen your comments and you and I tend to take a similar stance when it comes to a lot of the bullshit online. But the Gina Carano situation, if you're comfortable talking about that, sure. and her kind of, I think she's in business for herself on this stuff and doing her damnedest to try to get somebody to pay attention. And I don't think it's working for her. But what are your thoughts on the whole lawsuit situation and where that's going to end up? And
well, I mean, the lawsuit is ridiculous. It's really when you read it, and it's like when you're mentioning Alderaan in the first fucking paragraph, like I can't take this seriously. What is this? And so, that kind of infantile stupidity that you see from these MAGA people sometimes, it just is astounding. It's astounding when you see it because you're just like, wait. Did you graduate college? Have you become a full adult? Because what you're doing here is childish stuff, and so you just see it. But it's across the board, and it's almost like they hand each other. It's like they cheat off each other's tests to act the same way in all these situations. It is constantly to play victim, victim, victim.
Yeah,
while they try to eviscerate everyone who dares to have a different point of view and so to what they're doing. And so with Gina, this is very clearly an actress, quote unquote actress, who is not getting any more work. No one's interested in her. So what she wants to do is blame Disney for her actions and blame Disney for her limited abilities as an actress, blame Disney for her not being able to find work. And it's nonsense. And having someone like Elon Musk, and I put this up on my Instagram because she said that it's great to see a billionaire who is fighting massive injustices in the world. Elon Musk yesterday fired Don Lemon from a program that he had hired him to do on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, because he asked him some hard questions about his past. And so I wrote this in Instagram. I said, these people think they're hard as rocks and they're soft as marshmallows. And that's really the thing at the end of the day. And Gina is no different. And and she does this thing, cutesy face, smiley, wink, wink. I'm just being playful. But the truth is, she knows exactly what she's doing. She knows how she's playing this. And people have said she comes from money. I don't know. I haven't researched that, but this is spoiled child behavior, what you're getting from Gina. And it's a shame because I was such a massive fan of hers in the MMA. Massive fan of hers in the MMA. And when she was on American Gladiators, I thought she was super attractive. I was like, yeah, this is a girl that is hot. I'm all into it. And then to see all this stuff come down the way it's come down, it's just a shame to see her walk this path because she never needed to walk this path. And the thing is, the yellow brick road was laid out for her. Jon Favreau was like, I'm championing you. I'm going to support you. We're going to get you into range of the New Republic. It was all laid out. So you have to ask yourself, why did she make this turn? Why did she make this decision that completely sink her career? Now she's begging to force them to put her back in it.
It makes you wonder who was in her ear and who wasn't. In a way, it's sort of like, I might put it this way. It's similar to, we talked a little bit about sports before. It's like athletes who are not surrounded by the right people and make horrible decisions, retire with no money after making millions of dollars a year. She committed to whatever she was going to say online. And again, I'm not even going to comment. I obviously I disagree with what she said, but that's not the point. The point is your boss said, chill.
Yeah. Cut it out.
And you didn't. And what she threw away is astounding to me. It's astounding. And I think you're right. She can't take credit for it. She's got to blame others on it. So,
well, and it's interesting to see, like, if part of what you're asking for in a lawsuit like this is I want to come back. Like that's recognition. She knows what she threw away.
Exactly.
Like, the opportunity. I mean, for God's sakes, Rangers of the New Republic, that was supposed to be a project for her. Like
her
we
show.
had things set, it was laid out in front of her, and there has to be a little bit of, oh shit, I'd messed this up. Like, driving into that, 100%.
Because here's the truth. Ben Shapiro is only about Ben Shapiro. And so you go and work for him, you are working in servitude to him. And no matter what he says out there in the public, behind the scenes, it's very clear it's about him. That Western trailer, I almost did a trailer reaction to laugh through the trailer reaction, which I don't usually like to be cruel like that, but I want to because I'm the outlaw of the Westerns. This is my thing.
Yeah.
See it being terribly portrayed like it was in that movie. It just tells you she's desperate for work. It's very clear, and now she's trying to backtrack on all this stuff, and I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to follow that line for a minute because you are a critic, you review things, you do trailer, all that stuff. There is a fine line between being a critic and a fan.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? How does it manifest? Certainly in, being critical of something you love, like Star Wars or Marvel or whatever the things are that you're truly passionate about. Pete and I are the same way. Like we feel like we've landed in a place where we go, if it's not for me, that's fine. I'm glad to move on. I don't have to set a couch on fire in my front yard and be pissed about it. But, you do this even more than we do. How does that, where does that shake out for you? Where's the line?
Well, it's a good question. I try to take it on a case by case basis, and I'm very clear on the things that disappoint me. I'm very clear on speaking about it. Like Killers of the Flower Moon is a great example. Like that was a film. I did 2 trailer reactions to that film. I cried through both of those trailer reactions on camera. I had someone who is married to a family member of Martin Scorsese DM me and tell me that he had shown my reactions to Martin Scorsese and that he had been moved by them. And I was so looking forward to seeing this movie. And then when I saw the movie and was disappointed by the film or the decisions made in the back half of the film, I was so upset because I was like, how could you make this colossal mistake? And I said that in my reviews and I said that in my retort. So I try to be very fair and I try to be honest and I try to be clear so that I don't play favorites and I don't fall on one side or the other. But I always try to be respectful in my delivery. So like anything else, I'm not going to favor friends or family over strangers simply because they're friends or family. If it's an equal, it's always equal when I try to do it. And so I try to be clear about that, but I go the route you guys go as well. If people like something, I'm never going to tell them not to like something. Correct. Because Lord knows I like those Transformers movies and everybody hates them. So we all have that thing.
Oh, wait, you like those? You're not a real fan. You're a
fake fan.
Get out, sir. But you have that. But that's what makes us all film fans, though, isn't it? It's because we all have our quote unquote guilty pleasures. We all have our things we love that no one else loves, and they just appeal to us because of how we're built as human beings. So to tell someone not to like something, I think, is unfair. Even Madam Web,
Yeah. Well, and we've taken on this show probably individually, even before Pete and I teamed up. We took the position of, you're allowed to not like something. You don't have to be an asshole about it. Like that's where the line is. Like that's really what it comes down to. Like there are things I don't. Resistance? I'm sure Resistance is great. I've tried to watch it 4 times and I haven't gotten past the 3rd episode. It's not for me, but I'm not angry about it. I'm not telling somebody else they're wrong for liking it. I just go, cool. I don't have to watch that. I love Rebels. I'll watch Rebels till I fall out of my chair, but somebody else is going to disagree with me. But guess what? I don't have to be a jerk about it. Neither do they.
Wait till you watch Young Jedi Adventures. Let's see if you stick around for those.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. I mean, it's interesting, and we've talked about it before, and it's not to keep harping on this sort of situation, but I'm very, you've been successful by being positive, but also being very real with your attitude. We end up in a situation where people are now making a living on Star Wars shit takes, and that's not only frustrating. I mean, I'm not. People are like, you're just jealous because that guy's got 3 million subscribers. I'm not jealous. I'm pissed off, honestly, that he's using that platform, whoever the he is in this case, platform, for just being negative. how the question that I have for you, and I know how you feel about it as a
Mm.
as a practice, because we're humans and we're decent humans, but what does that do to a fandom? I mean, whether it's the wrestling fandom
Yeah.
or the Star Trek fandom or the Star Wars fandom, what's the impact?
Well, I think it becomes a corrosive element of the fandom because the criticism is not inherently honest.
Yeah.
Therefore, because once you create a toxic fan base, it must always be fed its red meat. And you must always find this red meat or they'll stop watching you. And if they stop watching you, they'll stop patronizing your sponsors. And if they stop patronizing your sponsors, you're not going to have a show anymore and you're not going to have a fandom anymore. So to me, I think it's a devil's bargain that these people make with these decisions. And look, everyone's got a right to earn their money in America or wherever they're at. You got to get your bag. I get it. But by the same token, it doesn't mean you're excluded from criticism. And I've had them send their people after me. I've had them get upset when I told them to find their balls a few weeks ago about Charmino Bechinoy. And they all tagged me in their shit. Then they got mad that I blocked them because I'm like, I don't want toxicity today. I don't want toxicity today. Because I could give a fuck. I really could give a fuck. Sell your calendars, sell all your shit and your merch. That's fine. Use me for the material because you need something to feed your rabid masses. Knock yourself out. But to me, at the end of the day, you're just allowing a lot of negative toxicity to course, not through the fandom, but through yourself. And I don't think that leads to a happy life in the long run, no matter how many people you surround yourself who are going to cackle and say mean shit all over, like themselves and and then just, support each other saying mean or laughing at people or whatever. And I've seen some people make the turn, and the people to me that I've seen make the turn because they want to make money. And it's a shame to see that. Certainly a high-pitched friend of mine who I saw make the turn has really surprised me because that guy used to beg for so many things and complain about so many things and in ways of wanting to be part of things. And now seeing him go the route that he went, it's a shame to see. But, that was the decision he made to make money. And I can't fault him for wanting to make money, but I will call out the toxicity that I see from so many of these people because they're not invested in making something better because if they were, they wouldn't constantly complain when certain things change. Like even if Star Wars was to make a decision to go in a certain direction, they'd have to have problems with Star Wars making that decision to go that direction. Even if it was the direction they told them to take, well, they're just doing that now to appease us. And so it's just a constant state of anger and don't excuse my passion.
No,
anger. I'm just passionate.
No, and I want to. Oh, go ahead, Pete.
I was just gonna add. I always remember and think back to, and showing my age. I remember when Rush Limbaugh said the best thing that ever happened to him was Bill Clinton being reelected. It wasn't. It was. He didn't want it to happen according to what he was saying, but by happening, it sure helped him out quite a bit. So.
Well, and I want to follow the thread you talked about. Not being afraid to call somebody out. We've had this conversation. Pete and I have had it individually. Kyle Katarn was on with us a few weeks ago, and he said the same thing.
Love Kyle. Yeah,
Kyle's great. And we've talked about this idea of sometimes when you call it out, somebody comes in and goes, but you're giving them a platform by calling them out. But the reality is you have an audience. Pete has a large audience. Kyle has a large audience. Like it almost feels like there is a responsibility to go, I have a larger voice. So I should say something. Where do you come down on that?
Oh, I think you should absolutely say something if you want to say something and if you can deal with the backlash. That's the thing. Like I've had a couple of YouTubers reach out to me on DMs after the Charmino Bechinoy incident, and then they were like, how do you deal with this? And I'm like, this is the game. If you're going to speak out loud and you're going to be opinionated, you've got to expect a backlash and you've got to be sure you can handle the backlash. It's not easy. When I made that comment about Andor a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, when I was basically trying to say I'd like a lot of these white-led Star Wars shows to start inviting people of color on to speak about the Andor show because it's very much focused on people of color leading that show in terms of Diego Luna. And so, and it's very much the immigrant experience being colonized. I just wanted that. But I worded my tweet incorrectly. The hate I got was so massive that there was a night or two where I was just like, what's the point of this? And so I really had to have a conversation with myself of like, well, if I keep going, and I took the tweet down because I'm like, I don't want to, keep having people misunderstand what I was saying. Because even I had some friends of mine reach out and be like, "Wait, are you saying I can't talk about Star Wars?" And I was like, "Clearly, I misstated." So I took the tweet down out of respect for them and what have you. But I had to have that conversation. And so once I realized that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna say my piece, which is why I said my piece with Charmaine Obey-Chenoid stuff. And I will say my piece again down the road. I don't need to name them because they will find it, and so I don't need to name them. But I do think if people want to name them, I think they should and have every right to do so, because they will name you if they feel like it. And you just have to be ready to handle the backlash. And I do think, though, I'll say this, guys, I do sense that it's changing. I sense that the wave now is pushing back on these crybaby anti-woke people, that the wave is pushing back farther and farther and pushing them away, because people are kind of getting done and sick of toxicity. And they're leaving the anger behind, and they just want to enjoy things again. And I think that's what we're seeing now recently. And I think they sense it too, which is why they're becoming crazier and crazier with some of their takes, and angrier and angrier with some of their takes, because they see that their money is getting affected by the pushback,
Right. Well, we're coming up to the edge of our time. If you have 1 second, I want to ask you one more question, because I think there's a lot of, we do end up getting kind of, as fans, as people in this space, we do get kind of sucked into these conversations about the toxicity, because it hurts us because we're fans. But what do you think the future is? We'll end with this. What do you think the future is for Star Wars? Is it in the movie theaters? Is it in streaming? What does it look like? Because the world has, since you and I first spoke, it was right around the time I think Mandalorian came out. Or shortly after that. So it's been a long time, John. It's been too long. But we're trying to evaluate then, because we were in the middle of pandemic. What does it look like now? Pandemic is behind us for the most part. What's Star Wars future look like?
I think it has to be theatrically. I think that's where we go. We can't. Star Wars was built on the communal experience of being in the theater and experiencing these movies. Now, did some of us discover them for the first time on TV at home? Sure. Most of the time with our families, though, right? So it's always been a communal experience. And I think if they start to focus more on just the TV stuff and not really work on putting out some great films that people will be re-inspired by, because that's what Star Wars does. It inspires a lot of people. That's at its core. It's its best. It's an inspirational franchise. Then I think they're going to lose the plot of this franchise once and for all. And like, I've defended Kathleen for years, because I'm like, look, it's making $6 billion. Whether the creative decisions are correct or not is a separate conversation. She's still making a lot of money on this franchise, and that's important. So, but where it all lives and breathes is all of us in a theater being taken into a galaxy far, far away and experiencing those emotional, inspirational, tragic, life-changing moments together. And Star Wars has always done that. I think that's why so many people love the franchise the way they do, because it spoke to them as in their formative years, and it gave them inspiration to pursue and dream and hope, a new hope. And I love that's the element of Star Wars. So I think if they don't fix the theatrical thing, and it has to be there, foundationally there, I think Star Wars is headed towards a slow death, and nobody wants that.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's great. Well, speaking of movies, speaking of theaters, tell people one more time where they can find you and where they can keep it, for those that may not, for whatever reason, have found you at this point.
If you like my passionate, long-winded approach to the world, please come find me at the Rocha Says on Twitter and Instagram. The Outlaw Nation on Twitch. I'm starting to get back up onto Twitch again. Bought a few games. Got a new PS5, so I'm starting to do some stuff there. And my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says. We are small, but we are mighty, marching towards 50,000 subscribers. We'd love for y'all to come aboard and check out the shows, the trailer reactions, the reviews, and just me being upset about something or being happy about something for an hour or so on the nation. So come and check me out there, youtube.com/John Rocha Says. I appreciate it. And gentlemen, thank you very much for having me on. Always love seeing you guys.
John, this was great. Thank you so much. And we'll speak to you again soon, I hope.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we'll be back with more ATG Live.
There's a key position in baseball that I think Star Wars can inform. Who is a closer? Who's a closing pitcher that's going to come in and wrap up a game?
So this is a very excellent question. I'm going to go with Sal Guerrero. I feel like he's got stuff that, again, you don't know what's coming. He's one of those guys that comes out of the pen. You're like, okay, herky-jerky delivery, not really sure what arm slot you're getting, and then you get the fastball in the third, and you're screwed. That's where I feel like he has a bit of a deceptive but aggressive tactic as a closer, which is kind of how you have to be. 2-pitch, third pitch, you're done. And he's with the kind of guy that's able to execute that in terms of mystery and delivery, never mind stuff.
Right. Plus, he's got the ice in his veins, right? It doesn't matter the situation.
Right.
Yeah,
temperament, 80 grade. That's not even a question. That's the whole point. The stuff is what you're worried about, and he can actually.
And he's going to do it longer than you think he's supposed to. He's going to go 5 extra years and still be chucking away, still shutting people down.
This is.
So much fun talking to John Rocha. He is, as he said, he's passionate. I think that's why I love. Honestly, you got to check out his shows. His Star Wars show with Eileen Norris, Shut Up Laura from
Laura Kelly.
Yeah, Laura Kelly. So good. Great stuff. Star Wars film otherwise. So, but the chat has been super active. Thank you. First of all, if you are hanging out with us for the very first time, and I know a lot of you are, because those numbers are hitting record numbers for us tonight. Thank you so much. If you're a fan, hit that subscribe button so you can join us every week. We have some amazing shows coming up. We have Clayton Sandell coming up in a couple of weeks. We have Ash Crossan coming up in a couple of weeks. We have, others. I don't even know. I don't have the list in front of me. But Kelly Knox is going to be joining us.
Wars Dad Jokes.
Dad Jokes. Holy cow, that's a great
plugging
book.
it right here.
There it is. Check that book out. But you're going to want to hang out with us and be part of that conversation. And speaking of conversation, this is the part of the show where we go through your comments during the show, and we bring them up and we post them and we talk about them. So let's hit those intercepted transmissions.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted?
So I just want to apologize to anybody who left a voicemail this week. It was a very strange week here at the Fletzer household, and so I did not get to process your voicemails, but they will be heard next week. I promise. If you left us a voicemail in the last 10 days, we'll have to, even if we have to go long next week with voicemails, we will. I apologize. Matt left us a fantastic story that I wish I could have gotten together for this week, but Matt from Enid, we will get more tales from Enid this week. But Nick has been closely monitoring the chat, and normally we have Lloyd, our producer, with us, but Lloyd is a little under the weather this week, so Nick is doing double duty. So bring up a comment or two. Let's see what we got.
I have a couple of things, and we're going to get to this first one. This is from our opening conversation about 0 versus O as we recite the phone number for the voicemail. Brian, our good friend Brian, asked, is it 15 soda 1 or is it 15 pop 1? Now, I'm going to add a layer to this because I am also a Midwesterner. I was born in Illinois. I lived in Illinois till I was 10 years old, but I do live in the deep South. So where I live, the thing is called a Coke. Do you want a Coke? But they may bring you a Sprite. They may bring you a Dr. Pepper. Like, it's not going to be a Coca-Cola. Do you want a Coke bubbly means, do you want a soft drink?
Right.
But I'm a soda guy. I say, hey, I should stop drinking sodas because they're making me fat. I should, whatever. So Brian's first thing is, are you a soda or a pop guy?
I'm a soda guy. It's soda. Yeah. Pop to me just sounds silly, but I know there's people who just, my
grandmother, lifelong Illinois, like she's a pop person. Minnesota, like I feel like you move a little bit farther west from Illinois, Iowa, you start to get more into pop territory.
And it's the kind of, so I remember I worked for a company for a little bit that was based out of Dallas, Texas, and I went to their home office, and there was literally a soda machine that only offered variations of Dr. Pepper. That was all we could get. That was it. So anyway, so that's it.
And I just learned yesterday that Dr. Pepper also owns Keurig. So the company is actually Keurig Dr. Pepper. So for those of you buying your coffee, Dr. Pepper's getting some of your money.
Nice.
we talked about the story about Dane and Skeleton Crew, and he
Yep.
said, time for something cool. I'm getting the quote wrong. Shay made a great comment, and/or Bad Batch, Obi-Wan. How are some people not entertained? I mean, it's a lot to love out there.
But let me comment on that. Yeah, I love Shay. She's awesome. But I think as a fandom, and this kind of goes to some of the stuff we talked about with John, we're kind of now conditioned to defend. And I think you're right. I mean, Obi-Wan is fantastic. Andor was fantastic. I honestly, like, one day I'm going to take the gloves off and I'm going to give my honest thoughts on The Rise of Skywalker and Obi-Wan and things that are not in my top 10. Sure. But again, I think what's so interesting in the challenge here is that it doesn't mean that I don't love them, and it doesn't mean that I think people who do love them are wrong. Again, you all know Rise of Skywalker is my least favorite Star Wars movie on the list of 11. Favorite. On the list of 11, it's a low 11. But I know there are some people who it's their absolute favorite Star Wars movie, and I could not be happier. I could not be happier that that's somebody's favorite. That's great. That's good. So, but yes, people complaining about waiting for something cool from Star Wars. I mean, you're getting something from Star Wars. So shut the fuck up.
Sentence. Yeah. Period. End of sentence. Brian had another comment as we talked about Gina. He said she figured out she's more engaging as a remorseless complainer than she ever was as an actress. Yeah, the comment kind of speaks for itself.
And I loved what John said. She absolutely does that, and I referenced it a little bit in the news story itself. She does that woe is me, as a white person today, I have no rights. And it's crazy. It's crazy. And Rocha nailed it. She does that cute little smile thing. She does a little winky, and she's got the little soft voice, and how can people? It's because you are I'm not even gonna go into it. We know why she's not working.
There's media training there, and you've worked in PR, you understand how that works. I read the article you cited was the one from the website that I can't remember, the millennial conservative, whatever the hell. But I read the Variety article, and Variety is a much more widely circulated, entertainment publication. And I read the Variety article, and at the top of the Variety article, it said she was, on the couch, no shoes, feet curled up underneath her, presenting this image of I'm just a nice guy and I got shit all over. It is, it's a position and it's a posturing, and there's a lot to it. As we talked about Rogue Squadron, TW chimed in. Always good to hear from TW. I genuinely hope Rogue Squadron has strong shades of a Star Wars version of Top Gun.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was pitched as. They shot that little trailer of Patty, in the back of her car, changing her shoes or putting on a jumpsuit or whatever it was she was doing, talking about her dad. Yep. And that's where I come from, whether it's Top Gun or whether, like I said, it's the old World War II, movies that I watched growing up that my dad watched. There is a space for something that focuses even more on pilots and space battles, because that's a key part of Star Wars, but it's always kind of like this other thing. Like I've said a bunch of times, I think my favorite space battle in Star Wars is the one in Rogue One over the Citadel and the Shield and, all that. That's a great, great space battle, but let's get a movie that focuses on those guys. There is potential there.
And the books have done a really nice job too of sort of going into the life of the pilots. And I think that seeing, Porkins get shot down, that sucked, but it would have sucked even more if we knew more about him. So let's see that kind of story. I would love to see that for sure.
Absolutely. Two more real quick. Another one from Shay. Talking about Disney, talking about kind of the rankings and where things are. Shay said, I saw an interesting graph last night listing the top 4 Disney IPs.
Yep, I saw that too.
Frozen is first, Star Wars is last. The money they put into Frozen, both film and parks, has made its money back almost 10 times. And I think related to that graphic, I saw something the other day that Star Wars was bought for $4 billion. It's made 12 at this point.
Correct.
So it's made 3 times what the purchase price was. That's a win. You can't say that, again, this dying franchise that we keep hearing about, Disney's choking it out and squeezing the life out of it. That isn't it. But it's a good reminder to us, and Pete, you and I've said this for years now, we're the weirdos. We're the freaks that spend all this time focused on Star Wars, but you've also got Marvel. You've also got, Disney Classic Animation and Pixar. Like, there's a bigger world out there, and Disney's focusing on those things as well as Star Wars.
Yeah, and they need to, again, to your point, we are the ones that spend so much time in this space and we do so much deep dive. But the reality is, the people who subscribe, there's, I don't know the numbers. Let's say I'll call it 50 million subscribers to Disney Plus. I don't know what the number is. Could be wildly wrong. Whatever that number is, though 9 out of 10 of those people are just there because it's like a cool subscription service, and it's got some cool stuff and some National Geographic things, and the Star Wars stuff needs to appeal to them. Yes, it's important that Bad Batch is interesting to you and I and shows these direct connections and all this deep lore stuff, and that's fantastic, and I love that. But most people don't. So it needs to be.
The other great example of that, we talk all the time about our dads.
Yep.
Your dad may be watching Bad Batch, but mine is absolutely not.
Oh, my dad's not, because it's a cartoon. Absolutely.
And when Mando was on, my dad called me every week after it was over to go, hey, let's talk about Mando. Yep. And my mom got her Grogu doll for Christmas and whatever, because she watched it with my dad.
Yep.
Haven't talked to my dad about Star Wars in months, because guess what? Live action hasn't happened.
Yep. Got to wait for the Acolyte, June 5th.
Yeah, that's it.
Do we have anything else in there?
One more, and this is a great one to part out on. JD, our good friend JD, he said Star Wars will never die. It has survived this long, and it will continue to endure. And I think he's right. I think obviously anything we love is going to live on and endure in the hearts of its fans, the people who love it the most. And ultimately, even kind of like John said, the wave is shifting. We're pushing back against more of the toxic stuff. More people are willing to go, yeah, you know what? You're full of crap, but I love this thing. And we use the example of Celebration all the time.
Yep.
We went to Celebration and we didn't want to run into one person who shit on Star Wars. We ran into 60,000 people every single day who are like, holy crap, Star Wars. I'm so excited. Like, that's where it is. That's where the fandom is. Star Wars will continue. And, until it doesn't print money for whoever owns it, then it's here. And that's
even then it'll be around, because you look at the mid 90s, the prequel era, and it was quiet, but they were still selling books. They were selling Power of the Force.
I mean, again, we lived through that era after Return of the Jedi and before the Phantom Menace. And guess what I did? I bought those books and I read the hell out of them. Some of them are sitting on the shelf behind me, because that was that other key formative part of my Star Wars journey. Like, it's going to be there and we can find it. It just is a matter of who wants it and where is it going to come from.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. First of all, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us tonight. We hit some new people tonight. If you are new, if you are hanging out before you leave this room, this is the dad me coming up. Before you go to bed tonight, before you do your homework,
put your shit away and
put your shit away and click on the subscribe button. That's all we got to do. Just hit that subscribe button. You might want to hit the reminder too, because as we said, we have some great guests coming up. Plus, you also on our YouTube channel, you get information and clips from our shows like Around the Galaxy and Podcast of the Wills. Around the Galaxy this week, I think, is going to be taking a week off, and we will be back with a guest shortly, a really exciting and fun guest. We get the people and understand the people behind the Star Wars fandom. We try to capture that moment when two Star Wars fans meet. So please check that out. And like I said, we have Mr. Clayton Sandell coming up. We have Kelly Knox. We have Ash Crossan. We have a list of great guests coming here, and you can take part in those conversations and be part of the show with us. Nick, it has been a blast. I will remind people one more time, hit subscribe. Got to do that. Nick, may the Force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.